officially welcome you. Thank you very much for being here. It's very grateful that the sun is shining, and although we've heard that there could be snow this weekend, but it finally looks like spring is here. But so glad you could all be here. And very graciously, our friends Gary Fowler and Doug Dawes, who are both selectmen but also come and participate with us on a regular basis, have agreed to talk with us today about some of the things that are coming up in the town meeting warrant, or some of the issues that are prevalent that the Board of Selectmen are at work on in town at this time. And about with town meeting coming on Monday, May 7th.
No, I think that's...
No, I think that is.
Is it?
It is.
The town meeting?
Yeah.
I don't know. I forget the dates.
I know. Well,
May 7th.
May 7th, I'm right.
Town meeting. So
because the town that I live in, it's the Monday before that. So, and then the following week is the election. But, town meeting is that opportunity with going through warrant articles and discussion about what's before and very importantly, all of our budgets. So it was very nice that they agreed to come and talk. Next month, Dr. Tallman, who's been with us before, will be with us again. And if you have any, we're still, he's always willing to answer some specific questions, or any topics of interest. So if you think of something that we could, suggest to Dr. Den, he'd love to have a topic. But very, very grateful that he's got the time to come and talk to us. He's excellent. So I'll turn it right to you guys. Thank you both for coming.
Well, thank you for having us.
We're glad to.
What politician would turn down a free meal?
Wow.
Thank you, Mr. Dawes, for volunteering me.
Well, yes. Or for me, just saying, could you come to breakfast and could you talk?
Well, thanks for coming.
No, we're glad to.
There's a lot of things we can talk about. Gary actually has papers that you can refer to, so why don't you start?
Well, again, thank you for volunteering me. And let me start. In a way, it might prep me, because typically I'll put in a plug for Dropper Radio 96.3. I'll probably try to get on there and talk about town meetings also. But to me, it's a great thing that we're able to go and attend town meetings. I think it's a great thing, but I kind of wanted to start with one thing. I wish it was a larger group, but we didn't draw them in. And maybe, typically, selectmen have talked about once a year, and I've always tried to avoid it till Doug volunteered me. But I think maybe it should be a little earlier, at least a month earlier, and then we could try to draw in some of these people here with all of this knowledge to perhaps run for office or something of that sort. Because look at the knowledge that's in this room. If you look at everybody's age and add it all up, so. I think it might be best just to take questions. I mean, the paperwork I brought is what we've been going over this time of year. Town meeting warrant, which changes every week that we have a meeting. Luckily, we start putting the date on here when it's revised, and the budget. And believe it or not, this year we have the privilege, I guess, of our budget is breaking $30 million. What the town takes for taxes is merely $20 million out of everybody's pocket. I think when I first ran 10 years ago, looking at this, it was probably down around 12. So it's increased dramatically, and it just continues. We're allowed. We've got the 2.5 proposition. It goes up 2.5%, and that's what it is. Taxes go up. There's not much you can do about it. But just let me take the opportunity to encourage anybody that's going to be watching, and you guys. I mean, to me, town meetings are a great thing. I mean, you folks get to go and decide what happens in your town. And some faces here we see, some we don't. There's one thing I want to bring on here. It's not sure whether it's going to be on here. And that is to change the quorum this year. We typically, what Georgetown has is we need a quorum of 100 people to have a meeting. And if anybody knows that goes there, we're usually sitting there about 10 after 7. people on their phones, trying to get people to come to make the quorum, especially at fall town meetings many times. I doubt we're gonna have a problem getting a quorum this year. But there is a thing on here to, I think, bring it down to at possibly 10 people. 10. Oh, thank you, yeah. So, you know, that's one thing to consider. I've not looked it over. I think there was I think there's possibly 2 options, a 50 or a 10. And personally, not in favor of that. I think the more people you can get to a town meeting, the better that you can. Sure. You see a question over there. Why don't you answer it?
I thought the quorum had to be a percentage of the registered voters. I didn't know you could just set a eye in the sky number.
There's many different ways, I think, that you can handle it.
I don't know that.
Yeah.
It's pretty much another board.
It's always been like 100 since I've been in town.
It's a percentage or a number.
All right.
Yeah. Well,
How many registered voters are there in Georgetown? You have any idea?
6,700, 6,200, someplace in there.
6,200,
Yeah, 62 to 67.
and we have to fight to get 100.
Yeah.
I guess there's 6,500 and something don't care how they spend their money.
Well, that there's one train of thought.
Right.
I mean, everybody's invited to attend, and others folks have conflicts in their schedule, or they have kids to take care of and all that. But I should think that we should be able to get more than 100 people that are interested in the town and realize that our tax levy is based on how much we vote to spend. and that has an impact on your taxes.
Isn't most of our budget for schools?
About half of it. Well, I said about. I don't know the exact number, but
Where are the town meetings?
at the middle high school,
Middle high
in the
school?
auditorium.
The other side of the brook out there.
Okay.
Used to be here,
Downstairs, yes.
used to be in the gymnasium.
Correct.
So, before Gary gets started, I'll just throw in, there's always interest in cannabis. And,
Let's stay on the town meeting a little while longer.
oh, you do, okay. I'm gonna get off of that.
One of the things that discourages me a lot about going to town meeting is when a real contentious item, when it looks like some of the discussion is going against it, somebody yells, "Move the question," and that's the end of the discussion. How do we prevent that from happening?
No way.
You can't. That's part of parliamentary procedure, apparently. Somebody can ask for the question to be moved. You could get stuck on somebody could filibuster if they wanted to.
Ah.
Don't they have to take a vote to move the question other than just somebody saying move the question? Seems, if I remember right.
I believe
They have
sometimes
to,
you
they have
can
to vote on it,
vote
so the
on-
people can continue it on if enough people want to.
Right. Well, usually if somebody's asked to move the question, the conversation's been going on for some time and there's some redundancy involved with it. Although I think everybody should be able to speak. But if we're going to repeat the same things and get the same answers, then the question should be moved.
Your town meeting is run by your moderator.
Right.
The selectmen set the warrant. Finance committee sets the budget. And the town moderator actually runs the meeting. And if you've only been to meetings in Georgetown, that's the only one you've seen, and you probably think everybody else does it that way. But if you go to other towns as a visitor, you'll find out that other towns do things differently.
Remember, the town meeting is the purest form of government. It's right from the very beginning.
Since I was 18 years old.
Right.
Some towns I've lived in at that period, so.
Right. Anything else on town meeting?
I was going to say, many times what happens is we tend to load the town warrant up early with things, and not everything that is on here will make it. But we put things on many times as a placeholder. And sometimes they make it to the final one that gets posted, which has to get posted, and I think it's about 2 weeks from now. And even still, some of them we decide not to do. Now in Georgetown, how we do it is the moderator asks for a motion, and if she hears no motion, then we just pass right over that. I've been to, I think it was Groveland, where if it's on there, you bring it up and you vote on it. You know, if you pass it over, you vote to pass it over, I believe. You don't just pass it over. That's just one of the ways that, you know, things are done differently.
The other thing that's been discouraging for me in town meetings is the group that wants something, moves their something to the front of the warrant, votes it in, applauds, yells yay, and then leaves.
I don't see it quite that way. It could be perhaps what you're talking about, Dick, is the fact that it might be more overrides, which if there's an override or a debt exclusion, they tend to be more controversial, bringing a lot of people to a town meeting. And typically, that question is one of the first ones. But other than that, the warrant is pretty much set up generally the same way every year.
Well, it just hasn't been
yeah.
my experience.
So, well, I think what you're right, like I say, if there's an override question, you're probably not gonna have a problem getting a quorum that year.
Right.
It's the ones that are pretty much redundant each year
And
that,
after they get that chunk of change, you have to look around the room. We
Yeah.
still got a quorum.
yeah, and the moderator has to say, please don't go home, we gotta continue the meeting.
Yeah.
And they can't continue
Without the quorum.
if they all leave and you don't have the 100,
These
correct?
are the things I've, over the years now, have aggravated me about town meeting.
Make a motion to lock the door after everybody gets in, and the meeting starts.
See, I very rarely get aggravated. I think it's great. I mean, I think it's a great form of government. We get to hear each other. People that you typically don't hear from get to stand up and speak. It's, you know, and we need to all just go home later respecting each other. We've all got different opinions, and if we can get together, speak about them, vote on it, and hopefully all go home friends.
Well, I cut my little slip in half and voted twice.
Well, I don't know if Doug, I think, wants to get on another subject. I don't know if there's, I mean, we'll continue, I think, with whatever you want.
No, I just put my thoughts on the
Yeah.
table, you know, let you know how I feel.
Yeah, I just want to bring up a couple of subjects that could bring up some questions. One is, first, how many veterans are sitting here right now? Okay. Being on the Board of Selectmen, I was appointed to the District Veteran Services Board of Directors. It's over in Ipswich. So if you guys have questions about your benefits and all that, you should probably make appointments with the VSO to go over your benefits to make sure you're receiving everything that is coming to you. The next thing is that there's one subject that always seems to elicit a lot of response, and that's the whole cannabis issue. Currently, the Healthy Farms was closed due to a pesticide contamination in one of their crops. Now, the way this works is that they were in their cleaning room, and they used this off-the-shelf pesticide that I guess didn't completely rinse off of the things they were cleaning, and when they put the new soil in and new plants, transferred from that to the soil to the plant. They are required by the Department of Health to test their crops. So they tested the crop and they saw that this contaminant was in the plant. They immediately called the Department of Health and let them know, so they self-reported. And the Department of Health said they had to close. So they're in the process right now of finishing, I think it was on the 20th or 21st, the Department of Health sent them some information, that they wanted some information, which winds up being like a huge folder of stuff. The Healthy Farms sent it in, it's currently under review. They've been closed about 5 weeks, which means that their patients, their medical cannabis patients, have to go someplace else to get their prescriptions filled. we expect them to be open soon. And and then they also have informed us that they would like to enter the recreational cannabis market. Now, the state, for existing facilities, the state says that we can't prevent them from doing that. And also in hosting agreement, knowing that this was, we also stated that we wouldn't stand in their way. But they still have to go through a procedure, okay? And the town has to go through a procedure. Recently, the Board of Selectmen voted to impose a 3% tax, local tax, on the recreational cannabis sales. There's supposed to be another facility that's going to open. I don't know what's happening there really. They did change their name from Greenbridge to Bluminous. That's the one that will be opening on Carlton Drive. So I don't know where that is. I have a call into their attorney to find out where that process is. So that's the update on medical cannabis.
Peter, both of these places allowed to just sell to the public, or are they restricted to doctors' tickets, or?
Bluminous is a cultivation facility only. They will have up to 3 distribution arms, but in Metro Boston. So they can only take their crop and bring it to their distribution centers in Metro Boston. So there'll be nothing sold.
Our high school kids there.
No, there'll be nothing sold from that facility. The only facility in town that has been engaging in retail is through the medical cannabis is Healthy Farms. And currently they would be the only facility that has the potential to sell retail. Okay, and there'll be, I believe, we have a new bylaw that should be ready for town meeting for the recreational cannabis area, the district, and the particulars of that. So be on the lookout for that. And so are there any questions about?
Yeah, if they're
Go
gonna
ahead.
sell it in town, where are they gonna sell it? Out of their,
Oh, it would be at Healthy Farms.
right at them?
Yes.
Yeah.
Dick?
So depending on the town meeting, my idea of a craft grower in my backyard would still be viable.
You're not in that district.
Yeah, but, we'll have to work on this. I mean, a small enough farm ought to be able to set up.
The only, farming hasn't been really addressed yet, so I don't know. I can't answer your question about farming.
One plant between each
However-
tomato plant.
However, you and B could grow 12 plants.
Right.
I thought I had some in the backyard one time that was on the firm.
Poison ivy.
Isn't the planning, I think the planning board still has a public, they still have
On
a
the
public
11th.
hearing coming up? on that?
April 11th, the
Okay.
planning board has a public hearing
On
for,
the bylaw.
what they, in the law, they call adult use cannabis, or non-medically prescribed, I think is the term the planning board used.
It seems funny, some of the things that we do by referendum, the legislature says, no, that ain't gonna fly. But this one just sailed right through. It's amazing.
Yeah.
But, no, the whole thing though, it has been a moving target by what the state has been saying also. I mean, we're continually looking and updating. You think you've got it the correct way, and then a month later you get an alert from the town's attorney that, oh, this has changed.
Yeah.
It's just a continual moving target.
It'll be that way for some years until the industry stabilizes. And, but there's a lot of areas where there's no guidance. The laws say one thing, or the regulations say one thing, and there's no guidance on what does this really mean. So you're left to interpretation. And,
Plus, we've still got the federal government not agreeing with any of it, so.
well, there's been legislation filed in the federal government to lift the ban on hemp.
What's the financial gain for the town with all this?
Currently, with Healthy Farms, over the course of 5 years, we would receive almost $1 million, just shy of $1 million over the course of 5 years. This coming May, June, we should receive their first contribution to the community of $100,000. Next year would be 150. Year after that, I think, is 200, and then 200, and then 200.
Now, that's just on the medical end.
That's right.
If
That's
they
just
go
right.
recreational and the town meeting passes the article for the 2% tax on recreational, that would be increased if they do get the license and open up.
All right, what's the restrictions on that money?
Can you put that money?
Can't go into the general budget.
That, the 3% would go into the general budget
No,
if it's a
100,000.
tax.
For medical?
Yeah,
Okay, if we can just stick to the hosting agreement right now, currently that money is been determined to go into a special account administered by the Board of Selectmen. And the Board of Selectmen are still trying to figure out how to dispense that.
You put it toward the new resource officer?
Well, this is where that area where there's no guidance, the Chapter 55 of the Acts of 2017 state that any expenses have to be reasonably used for, how do I want to put it? Hold on just a minute. As a direct result of that business being in the community, the monies that are spent have to be reasonably associated with that company doing business.
Police department?
Well, police is police, but there's no guidance, okay? So I assume, sure, we could use it that way. But there's been many other suggestions. We just haven't come to a decision on that yet. And go ahead.
Well, I just want to say what he said. I think somebody asked the other night at a meeting of the police department what they've had for calls down there. I don't remember if the answer was 0 or 1. but it was
The
a
answer was 1.
Yeah, okay, so it was 1 call. So to say that there's been a real impact, not in that way, it hasn't. But I mean, I'm sure that perhaps the chief
Not enough
could.
impact to have to put another police officer on just for that.
Yeah, right. Well, now, listen, their special license dictates if there's sufficient activity by the police department there, that they have to, the chief would go to them and say, because of this, and the frequency that we're here, we need to do this, and Healthy Farms has agreed to abide by that, okay? So we can use those monies for different things. Unfortunately, there's no guidance from the Attorney General's office on how to interpret what they've written in those acts of 2017. And those are the things that will, as time goes on, will get straightened out.
Yeah.
And eventually, I think, everything will just go into general fund.
That's been a big part. That's the moving target. Because when we first negotiated that, Doug was very involved. And it was just called the host agreement that went to the town as a gift account. The state, over time, has changed it to be more impact basis. So there's,
Yeah, I mean, I went to the Massachusetts Municipal Legal Association workshop out at Holy Cross College. And it was filled with selectmen and other people interested in that topic on cannabis. And during one of the, being that most of the people there were guys our age, there were a lot of bathroom breaks, and so the talk in the men's room was, boy, this is about as clear as mud. And when I called the Attorney General's office and spoke with the gal there that was at the workshop, I said that to her, and she goes, oh, I know, and we don't know, because it's not clear, and it's not been a challenge or like this, so we don't know. So we have to go by common sense as adults, which will probably mean the legislature does something else. But I love our legislature. So we're still in that process of deliberating and seeing how the town can use it. I have my ideas for this year of how to be able to use it, and instead of using free cash. But others have other ideas. So this is what we have to deliberate on as the Board of Selectmen and come to some idea of what we're going to do. Because, in 5 years, none of us may be on the Board of Selectmen. So we have to have some type of a standard operating procedure of how that works.
Will that money affect the tax rate at all?
No.
No, it's just something else.
Right, understand that the building, the Healthy Farms is paying taxes on the building.
Yeah,
And the value of that building has increased from when it was BW Price. So we have a net gain in tax revenue from the building. The same will happen if Luminous opens over on Carlton Drive. They'll still pay the taxes on the building, but the improvements that they make will increase tax revenue there. That's something that can help the tax issues in town to help relieve the residential property tax issue. We only have one tax for commercial and residential. So, I don't know, we'll have to see what the future holds. It's pretty exciting. I never in my life ever thought that we'd ever be talking about stuff like this,
I think it's gonna have a big effect on education budget too, special needs and stuff like that, as well as the police department budget eventually, when this gets more common.
Yeah, it could. And, to remember, thanks for mentioning the word education. Healthy Farms also agreed to contribute $95,000 over the course of 5 years for substance abuse education or support to abuse centers, things like that. From that came about what was originally known as the Substance Abuse Advisory Panel that the Board of Selectmen set up. And now I do sit on that. And because the term substance abuse seemed to have people recoil, we decided to change the name to the Georgetown Cares Coalition Committee, which is, less pointing fingers, I guess. And we're in the process of utilizing some of those funds to promote a program. Going forward, we're still on the foundation, we're building, but we are in a partnership with Essex County Asset Builders and networking with other communities, and have decided to support what's known as the 40 Developmental Assets Program, which is geared towards students. However, I have been asking for that to be geared towards all people, students and adults, because regarding substances and abuses, I believe that we all as adults need to reassess our thinking and attitudes towards them and how we're going to do that. And but the concept of 40 developmental assets is that the more of the 40 assets you have, you're better equipped to make good decisions. Now, in Newburyport, they've been using this model for a couple of years, and they've seen student violence go down. Students participate, they have a voice, so they feel like they have a voice. So these types of things, and we've adopted that within that committee, and we're moving forward with it. And that's part of the $95,000 that Healthy Farms has been providing. So total comes, I think, $945,000 over 5 years. Luminous hosting agreement guarantees us $200,000 a year once they open over 5 years. So, any questions on it? No? Okay. Pete? No?
Anybody
You got anything
remember,
else?
anybody remember Timothy Leary?
Yes, I do. That was, he was using a whole different thing.
He started the whole thing.
Yeah. Well, that whole 60s generation kind of, you know.
Well, back in that time, the police showed up at my door one time in Connecticut. We had about 27 acres of land, and the club, the golf club was right next to it. There was a grove of woods, and then there was a field. We rented out to an old colored guy, and then he died. Just about that time, the police showed up at my door and asked me, do I own that area? I said, yes. They were ready to put the handcuffs on me. They went in there, I don't know if somebody told them. They went in there and they found 3 or 4 trees. You know what it was?
Yeah.
A pot.
Oh,
Somebody there went in, planted a pot, and they were, I don't know what they were doing, I suppose they were selling it, and they were ready to arrest me. Now, they pay you to grow it.
yeah. Well, I know. You know, what's interesting is that there is industrial hemp, which has no THC or very little, like 0.3% or less, that was used during World War II. They made rope and other stuff from it. In 1941, the Ford company made a hemp car, and which was proven to be stronger than steel. And I have a film of it where they were hitting the car with a sledgehammer. It didn't even dent it. It can be used for 2,500 different types of products. Right now, people are using it for building, hempcrete, right? Using it for building supplies, which is lighter and has more insulating value. And you can't, if you go try to smoke a hemp plant, you're just going to get a bunch of smoke in your lungs. You're not going to get anything from it because it doesn't have that psychoactive property. So it's pretty interesting, these times we live in. And I know that they're trying to lift that ban on industrial hemp, which could open up a whole new manufacturing and all that land that the farmers get paid not to till could then be used. And, you know, so it's interesting. It's just interesting stuff. But we all have to join together as a community to make sure that we do it properly and to ensure the safety of those folks in our community.
Is there any controversial articles on the town warrant this year that would draw people, or?
Well,
Or we're gonna have the whole thing over in an hour?
it's interesting what controversial is. You know, I might think something's controversial, Gary might not, but there's one.
All right, Gary, I trust you, John.
Go ahead. I'll give you that one.
Got added last night?
No.
No, okay, then I'm not sure
Okay,
which one.
there's something on the warrant, we haven't voted on it yet, on the Board of Selectmen to move it forward, but to ban the single-use plastic bag, i.e. the
Okay.
plastic bags you get at the grocery store.
Okay.
And so that is, we've had discussions on that. We had a public hearing on it. We've had pro and con amongst the members of the board. There's agreement and disagreement. But if you read the document that town council prepared, it's not just the single-use plastic bag, which we all use to line up trash cans in the bathroom, or you grab it to go out with your pet, or you know, the many different uses that you have. I use them inside my vehicle to throw my styrofoam cups into.
Recycled dog food.
Right, right. But, so there's that, but it also contains the, what's it, Gary, polystyrene? You know, the little styrofoam boxes you get to take your food home in from the restaurant? So that is included in there. And so it's more than just a single-use plastic bag. I find that to be a controversial thing. I have made it clear that I'm not in agreement with it. The state has legislation pending on that. I say let the state do it, but instead of us. And, but I understand, I understand the concern of people about plastics. I mean, a third of all the plastic waste that's out there now is in the ocean. And they're finding the aquatic mammals and fishes and birds, they're finding them with plastic inside them. So it's just like a flotilla going across the ocean. And it takes some of these things, like diapers, 450 years to disintegrate. So I think that's controversial. I wish people would recycle. We can do that voluntarily in Georgetown, it's not mandatory. I asked Mello what it would cost me if we had them do curbside, and that's $39 additional a quarter. And, or you can put it in your vehicle and bring it on down to the transfer station, and Georgetown residents can drop it off there for free. But don't put styrofoam in it, because they don't take, that's not a recyclable. So I think that's controversial. And some may think it's controversial that we approved by 3-1 an override to fund a new police officer whose deployment it will be as the school resource officer. We don't have the money in the budget to do that. And there has to be a way to fund that. And that's, what was that, $108,000 that covers the whole package. The officer has already been trained at the academy, so that's a $50,000 that we don't have to spend. And that officer will be deployed to the middle high school. So we have an officer at Pembroke right now. And
It depends where you are, like what you said was controversial. I mean, for me, the quorum, I find, for me, that's probably the most controversial thing on there for me. And, and there's many others, but without stepping in it, I'll speak to you after, rather than while it's on the TV, just, I don't wanna try to, lead anybody one way or the other, while we're being filmed, there's many things in here, and it all depends on how you feel about them as to how controversial they are to each and every one of us, and that's why I would just encourage, please, come to the town meeting on May 7th, 2018, across the brook at 7 p.m.
True. And if you feel like it, we'd be more than happy to have you at a Board of Selectmen meeting, to participate that way too.
Or watch it on TV.
Oh, you want lots of people. I'm surprised at how many people
That's right.
watch it on TV. That's always amazing to me. So, I don't know, do you guys have any questions about other things that may be going on in the community?
What kind of reimbursement do we get from Ballpate Hospital for all the calls our fire department makes up there for health emergencies?
Well, you'd really have to ask the chief there, or the town finance director, I don't know.
That's not the same as a non-profit hospital.
I'd like to thank, first of all, this past March was difficult. I have never, in my just about 70 years, never seen trees bend like that. The highway department, Pete Durkee told me that he would be, probably his guys would be working through June to get everything cleaned up and the things cut that they need to cut. Plus we had those storms where we lost the power. I know at my house we lost it for 18 hours. Some people lost it longer. And so the police department set up a, what did they call it, Gary? Was it
Warming center?
What?
Warming center?
Yeah, warming center, where people could go to the Pembroke School, to the gymnasium, and they could hang out there, get coffee, and there were cots there if they wanted to stay overnight. My understanding is we had one person actually spent the entire evening, but it was that night that the lights came back on, around 8 o'clock. So I think we have a very good fire department, very good police department, very good highway department. And I think all the people in the town do their best to have good departments. So
Don't forget the electric lights back.
That's right. Yeah, I better, because he lives right next door to me. But, yeah, I mean, it's all these departments, the people are very conscientious, and they try to do a good job. Look at what Colleen does here, you know, and everybody's welcome, and so I just have to thank all these departments, and especially the ones that were out 24/7 during these storms. They're just one after the other. We have a nice town.
When's election day?
14.
I think it's the 14th.
Monday
Who's running?
There are no contested seats.
Would the town have a list of all disabled and elderly that would need help if something happened?
Colleen,
I don't know. I would, you know, do you all think we should have, it would have to be on an individual basis probably, but have some type of transportation so that the senior citizens would get to the polls?
to get to the polls, you mean?
Yeah.
Was that your question, to get out to vote, or in case of an emergency?
Well, in case of emergency.
That, I think, isn't so much us as, I think there's like one thing, the lock box or something, where the fire department knows where the key is. I mean, there are different programs that they have, but I think that would probably be better for the police or fire to speak about than Doug and I, but, yeah.
I'm not asking because I'm old, I know I'm old. But I'm able to do for myself.
It's nice to just be a youngster here, you know?
Disabled people.
What percentage of the 6,300 people are elderly and retired? You know, you see in the paper all this.
I got a point over that direction.
The mean income in Georgetown is
We're
110,000.
approximately 23% of the population.
There you go.
So U.S. Census is, was 2010. That's why it's important when the census comes around again in 2020, which is like 2 years from now, to return that. But so when Kirsten and I go through the residence age list that we're able to get from town clerk, that number is actually 1,900 for us.
Yeah.
But we only receive, we receive formula grant money based on 1,400. But there's a variety of mechanisms in place between the fire department, police, our department, elder services, housing, in terms of identifying people that during an emergency are the people that you may need to move. And our van is always available, and during the last outage, remember several years ago, was when I hurt my arm. And we had to open the shelter at the middle high school, and we were able, I've always left the key to our van with the police department as well as the school department, so we can move people if we need to as well. Plus the MVRTA's always said if we needed more transportation, they would provide that. So we've got some mechanisms in place and some way to reach out to folks.
So about 23%, you say?
Yeah.
of the
But that
town's
number will
population?
continue to grow.
It's growing.
That number continues to grow because, again, this population continues to age. More people become 60 each day. So we're looking at, in Georgetown, it's going to be probably another 30% increase by 2030.
Wow.
Yeah, it's significant in our
So it will
area.
be a retirement community.
The school population is decreasing.
Yeah.
That student population, and again, younger people are, and I say younger people, I'm thinking, knowing people that are raising their children now, people that are 30 to 40 are not necessarily living in our towns. They're moving in closer to Boston where jobs are available, and they want to be where public transportation is, but you don't see the same demographic in terms of aging. So those of us that moved out, to these towns to raise our kids who are now in their 30s and 40s, we're still here. More of us are becoming 60. Our children are moving closer to the city. It's been an interesting shift. Well, not so much. I mean, again, this population is growing, so it's not just a bedroom community that grows. It's population of elders, and that's when we talk about, again, healthy communities and putting in place those pieces that the selectmen have been working on, that what makes a community age-friendly, good streets, good sidewalks, access to you know, that's why we loved the idea of putting our senior centers right in the village center. So you could come to the center, you could go to the bank, you could go to Theo's, you could walk over to Crosby's. If you're at the library, you can walk this way. It's what makes, again, it helps build healthy community, you know, that we are inclusive of the different age groups and have services planned for those different age groups. So I think we're doing the right things.
I'm not a big one on plans and studies. It's like one of the things on here, there's 25 grand for a particular study this year on the warrant. I won't go into it. But in the past year, we had one come in, and it's the second one while I've been on the Board of Selectmen, and it's called the Housing Production Plan.
Yeah.
And if you go online to the town website and look at that thing, that is just full of information. I mean, it tells you, it's got charts on what's happened to the taxes over the years. Like, unfortunately, I'm one who likes to fight tax increases. While I've been on the board, would you believe it's gone up 50% instead of somewhat over a little more than 20% that it should have gone up? Because we have, and the town has voted through overrides, it's voted through tax deferments for the schools and things of that sort. But I mean, that housing production plan is just full of information. It talks about how many children are in town, where they expect them to go, the elderly, where they expect that to go, housing costs. I mean, the thing is just, it's full of information. So,
Go ahead.
One thing that really bothers me is Central Street. I think they should call it Patch Lane or something. Is there anything in the coming year's budget that they're gonna redo?
okay, your highway surveyor has a plan, a study that he did, had to pay somebody to do, and it lists all the streets in town, what the priorities are, where they should be, and that, I believe, is, for the most part, how he goes and
that's
I don't want to say attacks, but how he follows up on
And that's on-
which streets need to be done first,
that's on
which
the
are the
town's
worst.
website?
It goes, I don't know if that's on the website or not, but the highway surveyor, I know he does have that.
Okay.
And that, you know, it's not just, I don't think the holes, it's like, you know, it probably takes in how much traffic goes over the street and things of that sort. But yeah, he does have a chart out there that he goes by and does his best to
It
follow.
seems like everybody, Topsfield, part of Boxford, it's paved, and in Georgetown, it's the patches are coming apart. And
Well, if I could address that. The Central Street is on the hit list. The highway surveyor, Pete Turkey, had applied for state assistance in paving that, and that was turned down. So when I learned that, I called Representative Mears' office and Senator Tarr's office and spoke with them. And a letter of support was written through Senator Tarr's office to the Department of Transportation to try to apply, you know, not pressure, but encouragement to DOT to help us fund the that repaving of that road.
We ever had Peter speak here?
No, wouldn't that be fun?
Yeah.
So, yeah, so everybody's aware of it.
Okay.
It's just the funds.
Yes.
And the legislature is still asking, still being asked to redo the formula. I know Governor Baker has requested $300 million for, you know, roads, Chapter 90 money. There's a formula that people want, well, maybe $300 million each year for X amount of years to have the infrastructure, because the infrastructure is aging and getting worse and being patched. You know, and West Main Street's on the hit list. It's just a matter of, you know, when we can get it done.
Might be controversial for some, but there's a place, at this point, I believe it's just a placeholder because there's no language, but article, annual town meeting 18-24, highway surveyor, appointed position instead of elected. So, I don't know where that's going, but that's on here as a placeholder.
Now,
Well, one of the problems, they're wasting a lot of money. take North Street. When they repair North Street, they don't take the mud out from underneath and put stone in, gravel, something solid. And then they pave over that mud and it just sinks again. They've been doing it ever since I've been in this town.
It probably cost associated. I mean, unfortunately, remember Lenny Mira gave us those figures
Yeah.
on what it costs to do a road per
Right.
foot in this state
Right.
compared with others. And because of the labor challenges that we have, prevailing wage and other things, is it 3 times or is it even higher than that?
I think it's higher.
It's many times higher than what it is in other states to do highways and roads in this state. So it's challenging. That's the difficult part about government. And, you know, there's certain things that the state imposes on you. You must do it this way. And I mean, it's the greatest thing to point the fingers at the state and say it's their fault. But ultimately, it all comes out of our pockets, you know. So.
Well,
New England has rocks and mud. It's all over New England. But
mhm.
if you don't take the mud out and put something underneath, you don't have a base.
Well, it'd be nice to go down 30 inches every time you repaired a road or redid it, to have a solid base, you know, so that they last longer. I mean, it is what it is. And I know that given the resources that these departments have and the communities have, then I think we try to do our best. Now, on the good news side, is I was just speaking with Representative Mira, what's today? Tuesday night. He had a forum up at Flatbread Pizza, and I was speaking with him, and I had read where the state is expecting much higher than expected revenue, you know, tax revenue, and maybe to the tune of almost $880 million, more than expected. So hopefully, and he and his Lenny's colleagues in the House and Senator Tarr encouraging the use of that money to be given back in Chapter 70, you know, school funds, Chapter 90, roadway funds, etc. So, interesting. We'll see what happens.
Wouldn't it be better just increase their pay again?
As soon as the selectmen get an increase.
Back to the great town departments. I've got a regular down here. We're walking down in the morning for a cup of coffee 3 days a week, and you know, chewing the fat with the gang down here. Well, last week it was a very busy week. I didn't make it down. They were calling home to find out what was the matter with us. And I came in here and I said, it's a good thing I wasn't telling Beatrice I was, you know, going down here and going off and fooling around, because I'd have got caught.
Anything else?
Small towns. Can be done.
Yeah, you've done a good job.
Thank you. I think
Thank
we've
you.
covered a lot of stuff.